The storm that night wasn't just in the sky. It was in his heart. The rain poured down in sheets, the thunder rolling like the sound of 1,000 engines, and in the middle of it all, a man in a leather jacket stitched with the words "Hell's Angels" ran toward the hospital doors, carrying a small, motionless body in his arms. His boots splashed through puddles as his breath came out in desperate gasps. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, were filled with a kind of terror that even the toughest biker couldn't hide. Behind him, the distant rumble of motorcycles echoed like a promise or a warning. Because when one angel falls, the whole brotherhood rides behind him. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humanity, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion can come from the most unexpected places. The man's name was Jack Bear Thompson, a name that once made people in his small town step off the sidewalk when he passed. A veteran of rough roads and rougher choices, Jack had seen his share of fights, broken laws, and broken hearts. But tonight, he wasn't a biker, or a leader, or a rebel. He was just a father whose 9-year-old daughter Lily was burning up with fever and slipping in and out of consciousness. Lily had been sick for days. It started with a cough, then a high fever, and before long her breathing became labored. The nearest hospital had already turned them away earlier that day. The staff had recognized the patches on Jack's vest, the Grim Reaper, the wings, the red and white insignia, and they wanted no part of it. They whispered words like criminal and dangerous. They didn't see a father, they saw a threat. By the time he reached St. Agnes Medical Center, Jack was soaked to the bone, his voice breaking as he yelled for help. The emergency room fell silent when the doors burst open. A few nurses stepped back. One doctor shook his head and walked away, muttering something about not getting involved. Fear and judgment filled the air heavier than the storm outside. And then, she stepped forward. Her name was Nurse Angela Brooks, a tall, strong black woman with calm eyes that held both fire and grace. She had seen plenty of tough nights in her years as a trauma nurse, but there was something different about this one. Maybe it was the way the man clutched the little girl like she was his whole world. Maybe it was the way the rain seemed to cry with him. Whatever it was, Angela didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, barking orders to the others who stood frozen. "Get me a gurney, now!" she commanded. Her voice cut through the silence like lightning. Reluctantly, the others obeyed, but she could feel their judgment hanging in the air. Jack laid Lily down gently on the gurney, his trembling hands refusing to let go. Angela placed her hand on his arm and said softly, "Let me help her." His eyes searched hers for a moment, looking for any sign of mockery or fear, and when he found none, he stepped back, his lips trembling as he whispered, "Please, just save her." Inside the emergency room, time seemed to blur. Angela worked tirelessly, checking Lily's vitals, shouting for medication, oxygen, anything to stabilize her. The little girl's lungs were filling with fluid, pneumonia, and likely sepsis. It was bad, very bad, but Angela refused to give up. As she worked, she prayed quietly under her breath, asking for strength, for wisdom, for a miracle. Meanwhile, Jack stood outside the glass doors, drenched, trembling, watching every second like it was his last. The other staff avoided his gaze. Some whispered that it wasn't safe to let him in. Others said the hospital shouldn't risk it, but Angela didn't care. To her, every life was worth saving, no matter the past, no matter the patch. Hours passed. The storm outside began to quiet, but inside the real storm raged on. Angela fought to bring Lily back from the edge. When Lily's tiny hand suddenly twitched, Angela felt a rush of hope. "Come on, baby girl," she whispered. "You're stronger than this." And slowly, faintly, the monitor began to beep again, steady and alive. Jack collapsed to his knees when he heard the sound of life, the sound of his daughter's heart still fighting. Tears mixed with rain on his face as he buried his head in his hands. For a man who had spent his life hiding emotion behind a mask of toughness, that moment broke him completely. When Angela stepped out hours later, exhausted but smiling faintly, Jack didn't know what to say. He just stared at her, trying to find words big enough for what she'd done. But there weren't any. Finally, he whispered, "Why'd you help us?" when everyone else turned away. Angela smiled gently. "Because someone once helped me when everyone turned away from me," she said. "Kindness doesn't choose sides." Over the next few days, Lily remained in intensive care. Angela visited her every morning, sitting by her bed, humming soft gospel tunes. Jack was never far away. He started bringing Angela coffee from the vending machine, awkwardly trying to say thank you without words. For the first time in years, he felt something new, something he hadn't felt since his wife passed away years ago. Hope. But the hospital administration didn't see it that way. Rumors spread. Some of the staff complained that Angela had risked everyone's safety by treating a biker gang's family. Others said the Hells Angels were trouble and the hospital couldn't afford any bad publicity. One morning, Angela was called into the director's office and told she was being suspended pending review. When Jack found out, he was furious. He tried to speak to the hospital board, but they wouldn't listen. "We appreciate your concern, sir," one of them said coldly, "but we can't have staff compromising our image." That night, Jack rode home alone, his mind spinning. The next morning, the rumble began. Faint at first, then growing louder, deeper, like thunder rolling across the horizon. One by one, motorcycles filled the streets outside St. Agnes Hospital, dozens of them, then hundreds. Chrome and leather gleamed under the sun as nearly 200 bikers lined up, their engines roaring in unison. They weren't there for violence. They weren't there for revenge. They were there for gratitude. Each biker carried a single rose, red, white, or yellow. They stood silently as Jack walked to the front, holding Lily in his arms, her small hand clutching a teddy bear Angela had given her. Cameras began to click. News reporters showed up, and the hospital's administrators peered out the windows, wide-eyed. Jack stood before the crowd and spoke with a voice that trembled but carried strength. "This woman," he said, pointing to Angela, who stood at the steps, unsure what to do, "did what no one else had the courage to do. She saw a sick little girl when everyone else saw a patch. She saw a human being when everyone else saw a threat. And because of her, my daughter is alive today." Silence hung in the air for a heartbeat. Then one by one, bikers began stepping forward, placing roses at Angela's feet. Soon, the hospital entrance was covered in flowers, a sea of color and gratitude. Tears filled Angela's eyes as she realized what was happening. Jack turned to her, his voice breaking. "You saved her! You saved us all!" The hospital board couldn't ignore it. The story spread across the country. "Nurse saves outlaw's daughter." It was everywhere. People from every corner of the nation flooded the hospital's inbox with messages of support. Angela was reinstated within days, and the hospital issued a public apology. But Angela didn't care about the attention. She cared about Lily, about the miracle she'd been a part of, and about the reminder that compassion could break through the hardest walls. Weeks later, when Lily was strong enough to go home, Angela walked them to the exit. Jack hugged her tightly, whispering a simple, "Thank you." He wasn't a man of many words, but those two were filled with more emotion than any speech could hold. As the roar of motorcycles started again, Angela stood by the door watching them leave, a soft smile on her face and tears glistening in her eyes. From that day on, every Christmas, a group of bikers would show up at St. Agnes Hospital, not to cause trouble, but to deliver gifts to children in the pediatric ward. They wore Santa hats over their helmets, and the nurses laughed and clapped as they handed out presents. And every year, Jack made sure to bring the biggest teddy bear for Angela. Years later, when Lily graduated high school, she sent an invitation to Angela with a handwritten note. "You didn't just save my life. You taught me what love looks like." Angela cried when she read it. And that's the truth about kindness. It never stops at one act. It ripples, it grows, it changes people, even the ones who seem impossible to change. So if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love and kindness are stronger than prejudice or fear, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more true stories that remind us what it means to be human. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe one act of kindness can change someone's entire life? Because sometimes it only takes one brave heart and one act of compassion to heal more than just a single life. It can heal the world.